Hey everyone, in today's lesson we are going to be learning about characterization. So when we look back at story elements, one of the main story elements we learned about were characters. And so the way in which an author reveals the character's personality is known as characterization. And they'll do this one of two ways. They'll either directly tell it to us or they'll indirectly show it to us. And we'll go into that here in a minute. But before we do, I want to do two things. First, I want you all to pause and just describe one of your favorite characters. They can be from a movie, video game, a book, TV show, whatever. Just describe them. Maybe 2 to 3 sentences, writing a quick little description of your favorite character from anywhere. Okay, so now that we're back, we want to move here into getting to know the characters. So when it comes to getting to know the characters, the best way to get to know the characters is this thing called motivation. All right, motivation, characters' motives are the impulses, emotions, or desires that cause them to act in a certain way. And when you think about motivation drives everyone. It drives you all as well. Okay, why are you motivated to come to school? Most of you might say, my parents forced me to. Right? Some of you may say that I want to go to college when I get older, or I want to graduate high school. There's a lot of motivating reasons for why we want to go to school. We want to learn things that we didn't know before. All right. So early in a story, we learn a character's motivation, why he or she acts the way she does. And then that's going to move us into the rest of the story with action, dialogue, and conflict. And so with action, characters' actions are the outcome of their motives, and they're influenced by plot events, right? So this motivation moves us into our action, what characters do and why they do those things that they do, right? So for example, I know you guys are probably sick of Avengers, but it's an easy one for us to all to know. Like Thanos, what is his motivation? He wants to get rid of the entire universe's, half of the universe's population. He wants to just eradicate it, right? Because he thinks that it's overcrowded, and he wants to. His motivation is he's thinking he's making the universe a better place. Okay, so then he goes into action, and from his action, he creates a conflict, the big problem in the story that affects everything in the story. And through his motivation, all of his dialogue is driven as well because he speaks from that idea. Okay, so just understand this motivation is so vital to characters. All right, now moving from this, okay, as we said, there are two main types. The first of the two is direct, right? And again, the narrator or another character tells us exactly what a character is like, right? Here you have Squidward telling you happy moron day, right? So I want you to write, he's obviously either calling SpongeBob or Patrick a moron. So here, write your own example using direct characterization, right? Anytime that you've run into your own version, real or fictional, directly characterize someone, call them something. My mom is amazing. My mom is super intelligent. Okay. Moving into this, the next one is indirect, right? So with indirect characterization, this requires the reader to look for clues that reveal a character's traits. Okay. Also known by this acronym known as STEAL. Now with STEAL, you have 5 things here, STEAL. And so here are your 5 parts of STEAL: speech, thoughts, effects on others, actions, and looks. STEAL. Okay. Now we're going to go into each one of these 5 types of STEAL, and then you're going to practice on your own. So with our 5 types of STEAL, here's our first one, speech, right? So with speech, this is also known as dialogue. You have to make sure you see quotation marks. Otherwise, it is inner dialogue and a different type of STEAL. If you do not see those quotation marks, then do not think that it is speech. You have to see it here. And then here you have SpongeBob and Patrick arguing over Squidward. So you tell me kind of what can you tell about these two characters based on their conversation here. All right. Our second one is thoughts. Now, with thoughts, speech is what a character says. I thought it popped up already. So just what a character says. Okay. So our next one here is thoughts. Our second part of STEAL. Now with thoughts, all right, thoughts are the character's inner dialogue. This happens within the character. All right. What's going on in a character's mind? Now, this is a really hard thing to see. Okay. So most of the time when we see characters' inner dialogue, it's through the narrator. Now, the narrator, if you didn't know, is the person who tells the story. They're the ones telling us what's going on in the story. So sometimes an author will use italics to illustrate what the character is thinking, but most of the time you have to assume that the words on the page, if they're not talking to anyone or around anyone, is their thoughts. What are they thinking? It's implied though. And so looking at these two here, obviously we know SpongeBob and Patrick are not the smartest. So what could they be deliberating about? What are they thinking about here? And then based on what you think they're thinking about, what does it say about them? Okay. We have 3 more. So our next one is effects on others. Now with effects on others here, SpongeBob's throwing petals into Squidward's face and you can tell he's loving it. So effects on others are how other characters react to your character. This is arguably the hardest type because you've got to look at what the other characters are doing and see their reaction. So here you see Squidward reacting to SpongeBob. So what does that say about SpongeBob? What could we call SpongeBob here based on how how Squidward is reacting? All right. Actions are simply what a character does. Okay. So it can also be how they react to certain situations. And then looking here, what do you think SpongeBob, a character trait about SpongeBob based on his actions here? And then finally, our last one is looks. Try to find the most haggard SpongeBob I could. Looks are the appearance of the character. It is quite literally a physical description of the character. And then what can you tell about SpongeBob based here on his appearance? Okay, so that's it. Steal, speech, thoughts, effects on others, actions, and looks. And looking at our next slide here, why do we need characters in a story? So do a little quick right here, and then it's going to go into your practice. There is no quizzes this week. It's just going to be a practice. And so with this practice, what we need to just make sure we are doing is I provided you a large chart of 100, I think, ish character traits, and you can pull from those character traits if you would like to, or you can Google some of your own if you kind of have your own. Don't think that you have to pull from that chart, but I just didn't want anyone to be like, I don't have any character traits, Mr. Black. What am I supposed to do? So it's provided for you in case you need it. Okay, so those are kind of the next steps here is to move into the practice. The practice is a little bit longer this time, but that's because I don't really have a quest. I just have your mastery check and then a graded practice that's very quick. All right. So as always, if you have any questions, just let me know. And goodbye, everyone.